So this is composition number 2 of subject number 2. It's that lone tree that's way up there. And for this composition, I actually shot it at every focal length that's listed on the barrel of the lens. It really has opened up my eyes to seeing some different compositions of how I might frame things differently in camera in the field. And it may be something that I continue to do going forward, at least with subjects that are at a great distance for me. Because usually I find what I think is the sweet focal distance and just take that shot when there could be other ones. Here's that photograph now. And actually, I'm going to show you both ways that I shot it, because I shot it in landscape and portrait mode. Here's those photos.
It was such gorgeous light. I really wanted to find a composition where the tree and the rock were in balance on top of this hill. The light is what drew me to this composition. It really drove me crazy trying to figure out how to balance it out, how to get that shrub out of the foreground enough to make the photograph. Here's the raw and the post-processed image side by side. I did get some interest in the sky back when I brought the exposure down a little bit and gave a little bit of dehazing as well in that sky. It's not portfolio worthy, but it is a good photograph. I did enjoy making it. I enjoyed being out that night. So much that I also shot this in landscape mode. And if you remember from the last video, I was a little disappointed with the long distance shot. This one's a little closer, but we're still zoomed in. So here's the second version of this composition. This one's in landscape mode. There's a little bit better balance here. That pesky little bush keeps getting in the way of my rock, though. I kind of actually like this one. It's a little tighter. You can see the twistiness, the gnarliness of that tree. Maybe the composition is really just the tree. Not sure. Let's discuss it down below. Tell me which one you think's better. What would you do? Plus, here in just a little bit, I'm going to discuss in the field my compositional thoughts of this composition specifically. And then, as I teased in the trailer for this series, we're going to hear from Shelley, Corinne, and Shawn, their takes on this lone tree.
But what we got is we got the main subject, which is this lone tree up on this rock piece here, right? And that's pretty much it. There's a little bit of a peak or another boulder or conglomerate probably up there. Shelley would know better than I would. She's the geologist in the family. And I think these actually balance each other off quite nicely. Plus, we've got some high, wispy cloud that keeps streaming across the composition. And that's adding a little bit more interest to it, as well as the fact that everything is getting side lit as the sun is setting. You know, we probably have maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes max of light left down here in the canyon until the sun is below the rim of the canyon. It won't be official sunset, but it will be in the canyon for all intents and purposes. At that point, we may have some blue hour light that might be interesting in the canyon, and I think there's a panoramic that I want to get back to. So I'm going to go up here and see if there's one more composition. If there is, I'm going to show you that composition. If not, maybe you'll have some kind of cinematic, you know, slow-mo time-lapse thing, and then hopefully that composition of the canyon. What are you working on, dear?
Well, I have found this beautiful little lone tree. Seems like all of us have found this beautiful little lone tree on top of this hill right here. And I'm using that and the little, I don't know if it's a juniper tree, whatever it is, below it, as some added interest in the foreground. And I was waiting for these clouds to move behind the tree just to give it a little added interest in the sky. And I'm bracketing my image so I can get the sky exposed the way I want it, and as well as the tree. So that's kind of what I'm doing right here. I've taken multiple different angles on this tree, and I kind of like this one. This one's good. So
And here's that photo now.
Shelley got the better photograph. I'm going to admit it right now. I love just the tree in the photograph. I wish she could have gotten a little bit more of that side light that I had. She did get 2 here. I like them both. Even with that bush way off in the foreground. That's nice.
So Corinne, what you got going here?
Well, what was really interesting in this picture that I'm working on with the solo juniper on the top of the hill is the hill has a nice dome shape. And if you do this in a landscape mode rather than a portrait mode, you get this awesome curve that almost mimics the curve of the earth. And it reminds me of Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince by Saint-Exupéry.
Very cool, very cool. Thank you, Corinne.
So here's Corinne's take on that photograph. She's got a little bit better balance. She's got some good side light. I love the sky in this one. It wasn't an epic day, but it was epically fun for all of us, as you'll find out in just a second here.
Hey, Shawn, so what are you shooting?
So we're shooting the juniper up at the top here. And if you put it in landscape mode, you can see that the hill has this beautiful little arc to it, just like the earth. And it really reminds me of a book of The Petit Prince.
Gee, that sounds vaguely familiar.
I would, I'm sure it must. It's like great minds think alike, or fools never seldom differ.
So the really interesting thing that everybody has to take into account here, let me flip around. Okay. Now here's Shawn and I. Now I'm going to flip around again. There's Corinne and Shelley. Look at where my tripod is.
Yep, we see his.
I think everybody shot the same tree.
Yeah.
At various angles.
At least a dozen times today.
Yeah.
So now we shot it a little bit this morning, but boy, I'll tell you what, the difference between a morning shot and an afternoon shot is, if you'll forgive the pun, is the difference between night and day. So, I mean, it is so beautifully lit right now.
So one thing to keep in mind, if you're going to come looking for this, it's right next to Mesa Arch.
Yeah, in Utah.
In Utah.
The fact that we're in
Texas means nothing.
Yeah, the fact that we're in Palo Duro State Park in Texas has nothing to do with it. You'll find this at Mesa Arch.
So if you go to my Instagram, it will say Mesa Arch on this photograph.
So secret code. You've all been let in on the code. You have to watch this video to get the code.
Yep.
Now that you got the code, go on over to Instagram. Here's Shawn's take on that lone tree. He's got that curvature that he and Corinne were both talking about. I do like the balance. The clouds are lacking. But none of us got exactly what we wanted out of this photograph. We did have a great time, though.
So the rest of the group went up the trail a little bit farther, well, quite a bit farther, to shoot another composition of a gorgeous rock face that's been lighting up for the last few minutes. I came down the trail back towards the trailhead to shoot this panoramic behind me before I lost all the light. It's a really big pano. It's an ultra wide panel like I like to do. So I will step you through that here in the raw images and then show you the final pano if it turned out. Here it is.
This is it. The moment you've been waiting for. The ultra wide epic pano from Palo Duro Canyon. I wish it was truly epic. It is going to go in my portfolio. I do love the quality of light that I was able to make in this photograph. Everything was shot on location, multiple frames. I'm showing you them now. There's a total of 24 individual frames to make up this panoramic. That's why I call them ultra wides. It's well over 300 inches long. Yeah, pretty massive. We're going to slide that last image over, that 9th frame, and then we're going to start stacking again. They're not perfectly aligned here in the video because I want to show you how much overlap I actually do when I shoot one of these panoramics. That way I know that when I get back to the computer, I have enough information to get the panoramic that I'm looking for. You're going to notice these look a little flat, a little dull, but that's because I haven't done much with them. They're the raw frames. We'll take them in, we'll process them, and I'll show you the side-by-sides, but differently. It's going to be a top and bottom. Sliding that last 9th frame there. We got a few to go, and we're almost done showing you the 24 raw frames that make up this ultra-wide panoramic, which I'm really happy with. It's probably my favorite photograph of the night. Here it is in its raw glory. It's pretty close to what the post-processed image is going to look like. The processed image is on the top, the raw is on the bottom. I did have to take some dust spots out of the top. I did a little dehazing there as well to get a little bit more quality of light and the layers back into the photograph. Let me know what you think. Am I crazy for doing these ultra-wide panos, or do you like them? Let's talk about it down below.
Hi guys, I'm going to do another geosplaining today for you. I know everybody seems to love that. So right now I am standing in what is called the Big Cave at Palo Duro Canyon State Park here in Texas. And this is a really interesting cave if you look at it. It's not your typical cave that you would think of, you know, limestone and stalactites, stalagmites, that kind of thing. This is actually in sedimentary rock. So here we have what appears to be a lot of mudstone at the bottom, which is just loose sediment, essentially. And it's all fluvial, or mostly fluvial, from water activity that happened millions of years ago in this area. And then we have on top of that, you see this really thick layer of sandstone across here. And it's got a little bit of white mixed in. That's also a mudstone underneath there, it looks like, from what I can tell. And then above that is a really loose conglomerate-like material. It's sort of a conglomeration of a lot of different kinds of rocks up on the top. And it's really easily weathered and eroded. So that's starting to fall down, and that's why we've got holes in the top of the cave. So this is just a really interesting portion of the geology in the canyon down here. This is not all the geology. There's a lot of other layers to this, and we can talk about that later, but that's the basic geology of this cave right now. It's quite nice.
So like I said, the group went farther up the trail. Shawn, Corinne, and Shelley, they went up the trail to shoot what I'm shooting from way down here. That's back towards the car. There's probably a better angle up there. Hopefully Shelley came away with something. If she did, I'll show it to you here after I show you what I've got from this location. This cliff face has just blown up. The light was gorgeous. I think I had a really good angle. I'm still seeing a little bit of glow on it every so often. So I'm still firing off a bracketed 3 set just to make sure that I get enough information that I can, in post, assemble the proper exposure if I don't already have it. It's one of my favorite tips. When you're on a trip, bracket. Do a 3-step bracket at a minimum, 3 photos, 3 steps apart. One should be your perfect exposure, which you can tweak in Adobe Camera Raw or in Adobe Photoshop, or you can do an HDR blend either through Lightroom software, which is really good at it, or you can use a luminosity mask style of post-processing, which I like to do for my final images. I'll use that Lightroom HDR function just to see if it's there, instead of wasting hours trying to paint in parts of the exposure that I know are wrong. But 9 times out of 10, I'm doing more contrast and dodging and burning in Photoshop these days. So here's that photo now, mine or Shelley's. Tell us what you think. Leave a comment down below. Let's get this discussion going.
So here it is, the underexposed frame of the last composition for the evening. And I mean last because it got dark fairly fast. Here's the base exposure. You can kind of get a glint of the light on the cliff there. And in the overexposed, you'll really see it. Yeah, it looks a little washed out. It's really, really good because it gives me a lot of detail on the cliffs to work with in the flat, high dynamic range photograph. Here are the 3 exposures, -3 under base exposure and +3 over. We're going to blend them together to build that raw high dynamic file that I can use in any application that I want to edit. So here you go. This is the flat, raw file. You can kind of see the light that I was talking about that I really like the quality of. You can see the different layers of the cliff face too. I thought that was really cool. So there's the raw for you. And now I'll bring the processed file up on the right for you. I dehazed the sky a little bit. Also brought down the overall exposure of the sky a little bit. I love the detail in the cliff face. The little bit of reflective light off of the upper part of the cliff as well. It's amazing what you can do with an old DSLR when you just do a little bit of post-process work at the desk. Let me know how you'd handle this situation. What do you think of the light? What do you think of this photograph? Let's talk about it down below.
Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, it means a lot to me. If you would, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of what we're doing here on the channel. I know we're throwing in a little bit of RV life stuff as well, but I want you to know how we're getting to places to do photography. Sometimes photographers get obsessed with gear, and what we should be getting obsessed with is getting to places and spending more time and learning that area and coming away with better photographs. Gear is one part of the equation, knowledge of a place is another. That's why I highly recommend returning to locations time and time again. Different seasons, different times of day, you will see different conditions and different light. That's my big takeaway from this episode. This place is gorgeous and I want to come back. If you made it this far and you haven't yet done so, hop on over to Shawn and Corinne's channel after you're done watching. I will leave a link down below and a card up above for their channel, Travels of Red Rover. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Shelley loves it when you guys watch too and leave comments and interact with her. She loves the interaction almost as much as I do. So if you haven't yet done so, please hit that subscribe button, ding the bell for future notifications, and give me a big thumbs up. Thank you again so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.